John McMullen will be there with us as
social
he joins
lubricants
us now here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. As he writes over at 97.3ESPN.com, Sam Bradford speaks today, John, and he is not concerned about all the rumors circulating, but I got to imagine that it's not healthy to have this happening with a guy who's a little fragile.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I can follow it. That's a talented man next to you. There's a golden pipe.
Thanks, buddy.
But, Sam Bradford is constantly going through this. He went through it last year. It has to affect him, and it's pretty evident that the Eagles don't think he's the long-term answer, but I think he tries to compartmentalize as the best he can, and that's what he tried to get across today, and the fact that he can't control it, so he's just moving forward. I think he understands no matter what happens, he's going to be the starter this year. And if he performs well, he's going to be a starter next year, meaning 2017, whether it's in Philadelphia or somewhere else.
Well, I don't understand why the Eagles don't give him an opportunity without the distractions. Just say, you know what? We signed you. You're the guy. We have other holes to fill. Like, do you feel that the quarterbacks in this draft are so I gotta have that you're willing to almost, I don't want to say throw away this season, but what if Bradford performs well and now you have a first-round pick sitting on your bench?
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it, and I would kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And I think, by the way, as I wrote today, I think that's going to be the end game, not necessarily because the Eagles want it to be, but because of that, they don't have that second-round pick. It's coming back to haunt them, and that's the reason they weren't able to move up to number one. It's going to be the reason I think they're not going to be able to move up to number two or even number three, as somebody reported today. And the reality is they're going to have to move forward with Sam Bradford, and at that point, similar to Chip Kelly last year, who tried to throw the kitchen sink at Tennessee to get Marcus Mariota.
Right.
Same thing's going to happen this year. They're going to end up with Sam Bradford and say, hey, you're our guy, Sam. Go out there and do it.
Okay, now let me ask you this, because I know the second-round pick constantly comes up, and a lot of people didn't like the move because they gave up the pick, and then that pick has now been used to get up to number one, and if the Eagles wanted to get up to one, that could have prevented them to getting to number one. What if Sam Bradford plays really well this year? Isn't that – let's say he plays so well that they win the division, make the playoffs, and maybe even win a playoff game. Hypothetical, I know. But isn't that worth a second-round pick?
I think it is worth a second-round pick, but I don't think that's the issue. I think it's the fact that the team that traded it for him doesn't believe in him. And that both regimes really have shown it. The Chip Kelly regime they made the trade to sort of spin them off, to try to get up further and get Mariota, as we said. And now we're in with Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson, and they've sort of signed him as a safety net, but they want the long-term answer, whether it's Carson Wentz, and as I believe they want to go, or Jared Goff, as some people believe. Either or, the organization itself is the one that is showing that it doesn't believe in Sam as at least the long-term answer.
Can he change? What if he changes their mind?
Well, I think he can change their mind this season if they don't make the trade. If Carson Wentz is say, in here for 2016 as the third-string quarterback, there's nothing they can do. You can't take the second overall pick on a quarterback and say, we're not going to play him. We're going to keep going with Sam Bradford season after season after season. It just doesn't work that way. The reality of the situation, if you have a second overall pick who's at a quarterback, at some point you got to pull the trigger. That's just the reality of it, unfortunately, for Sam. If the trade doesn't go through and the Eagles, say, win this division and Sam plays at a very high level, I think then the Eagles revisit their thinking and say, you know what? What we have is not that bad. Let's go forward with that. But I think it all hinges on April 28th. And let's be honest, if they take a quarterback at number 2 overall, Sam's done. Not this year, term. He's not going to be the quarterback of this team.
And I agree with that comment. It just seems to me that they almost want or expect Bradford to fail, and that doesn't sound like a recipe for success to happen. It's like when San Diego drafts Rivers and has Breeze and just decides Breeze isn't the guy. Well, I know Rivers has been great, but Breeze was pretty darn good. It's a little different situation in Green Bay where they draft Rodgers and because they think Favre's going out the door, but more similar to that spot where they just didn't think Breeze was going to be any good. And I know he was hurt, and that factored in a little bit, but guess what? Breeze has won a Super Bowl. Rivers has not.
Yeah, and those are both really, you could argue, Breeze certainly is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Rivers is on the cusp. And if he ever did make a run towards the Super Bowl, he'd probably be in Canton also. But at the time, you're right, San Diego didn't believe in Drew Brees. He was an undersized guy with a shoulder injury. And they weren't the only one. Because if you remember, Nick Saban says to this day, actually, that if he got Drew Brees in Miami instead of Dante Culpepper, that one off season, he'd still be coaching in the NFL. But the Dolphins team physician said, you can't sign this guy. That's how bad his shoulder was. And he turns towards New Orleans, and the rest is history.
And Culpepper went to Miami.
Exactly. Who was a heck of a player, but he was coming off a very, very serious knee injury, and he never recovered. And that's kind of what happened to those two organizations, and that's how things can shift. But getting back to Philadelphia, you're 100% right. The Philadelphia Eagles as an organization have never shown any confidence in Sam Bradford. That's the reality, and it continues to be the reality. Now, I'm not going to feel sorry for the guy because he's making $22 million this year, and there could be worse things to be the plan B for an organization that's paying you that well. But at the same time, if you want to succeed at the highest level, it's tough to imagine it happening when you don't put everything in the organization behind the guy you expect to lead it.
John McMullen's with us, 97.3 ESPN.com. I agree. I feel like, what'd you give him this contract for? What'd you give him this money for if you've been chasing the tail? It's like a dog chasing his tail here, just trying to find something better. Or, you stay with your girl as you're looking for something better, and you just can't find something better, so you just kind of keep her. It's ridiculous to me the way they're handling this, that they're actively shopping for number 1 pick. Okay, we don't get that. So now what happens? We actively shop for the number 2 pick? I mean, it sounds ridiculous to me.
Yeah, you got a good analogy there. It's like you got a nice girl at home, and you see a prettier girl at the bar, and you say, oh, I'm going to keep her and see if I can get the other one. It doesn't work that way. One's going to be upset, and Sam handles it the best he can. I think he handles it.
How did he handle it today? You were there. How did he handle it?
He handled it very well, and he as I said, he tries to compartmentalize it. He says basically that he can't control it, so he can't worry about it, and he just worries about doing his work. And he's a very professional guy, and he handles it that way. But that doesn't mean when he goes home at night he doesn't realize that the organization doesn't think he's the long-term answer. He's not a dumb person. He realizes it. And that has to affect your psyche, whether you show it in public or not. And I don't think the Eagles have been at least paid enough attention to that aspect, or they don't care.
I
think it's more the latter, is the fact that they don't care because they don't expect him to be here long term.
Yeah.
Mike, it's the old. What they're trying to do is serve two different masters. They want to rebuild, but they don't want to get really bad when they rebuild. And that's exactly what's going on.
Good point. John McMullen has the story of Sam Bradford and how he's dealing with it. Check it out at 97.3 ESPN.com. And, John, we'll have plenty more on the NFL draft coming up throughout this week. And John will be live on Thursday the 28th, as we'll have plenty of draft coverage on the NFL draft day.
John and I are going to do a duet together. That's what I was told.
What song are you requesting, John?
I'm going to go more hip-hop. I'm going to go Big Pimpin'. How's that?
Wow.
All right,
That's
John.
must-see.
Take care, John.
All right. Thanks, John.
Big Pimpin', John McMullen.